You know those stories that just crawl under your skin and they just stay with you?
Mm-hmm.
The case of Elisa Lam, young woman, vanished from an LA hotel back in 2013,
Yeah.
only to be found, weeks later, in a rooftop water tank. It's one of those.
Definitely. It completely gripped the world.
It did.
And what's so compelling, I think, is that puzzle element.
Exactly.
The really unusual circumstances around her disappearance, her death, it creates this intrigue that's, it's more than just a typical missing person case.
Right.
So our goal here in this deep dive is really to try and dissect what we actually know from the sources we have.
Lay out the facts.
Lay out the facts, try to understand the sequence of events without getting into just pure speculation. We want to shed some light on the known details for you.
Absolutely. We're not chasing ghosts, not diving into wild conspiracy theories here.
No.
We're looking at the substance, the information we actually have.
What the reports say.
Exactly. And for this, we've pulled together some key resources. There's the Wikipedia page for the death of Elisa Lam, which is pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
Then an article looking closely at the Elisa Lam autopsy report results, exploring that PDF file.
Ah, the details.
And a really good overview from How Stuff Works called How Did Elisa Lam End Up Dead in a Hotel Water Tank?
Straight to the point.
Very direct.
Okay. So let's start with, who Elisa Lam actually was.
Right. So Elisa Lam, born Lam Hoey in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, April 30th, 1991.
So she was only 21.
Just 21 at the time.
Oh.
Her parents were immigrants from Hong Kong.
Okay.
She was a student at the University of British Columbia, although, interestingly, she wasn't actually registered for classes right at the start of 2013.
And it's also pretty significant that Elisa was, quite open about her mental health journal.
That's true. She had blogs.
Yeah, she had these blogs, Ether Fields and then Nouvelle Nouveau. She wrote about dealing with bipolar disorder and depression.
She even used this kind of striking quote from Chuck Palahniuk on one of them. You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life.
Wow. That really gives you a glimpse, doesn't it, into her thoughts?
It does. A powerful one.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, her openness, it becomes a really important lens, I think, for understanding some of the theories later on.
Definitely.
We know she was prescribed several medications for her mental health, things like Wellbutrin, lamotrigine, quetiapine.
Hulk cocktail.
Yeah, dextrine, spancel, venlafaxine too. Now, her family did say she'd never expressed suicidal thoughts.
Right, that's important.
But she had apparently been hospitalized at least once before for hallucinations linked to when she wasn't taking her medication properly.
Okay, so that history is there.
That history is there.
So she's navigating these challenges, and then January 2013, she decides to take a solo trip down to California.
Right, by herself. She traveled using Amtrak, inner-city buses.
Made a stop at the San Diego Zoo, I read. Put pictures up online.
Yeah, documented some of it. Then she arrived in Los Angeles on January 26th. Checked into the Cecil Hotel, which is also known as Stay on Main, on the 28th.
And the Cecil.
Oh.
Well, that hotel has its own very dark, pretty well-known history. We should probably touch on that later.
Oh, absolutely. It adds another layer.
But initially, she wasn't in a private room, was she? She was sharing.
That's right, yeah. On the 5th floor, in a shared room initially, but just after 2 days, they moved her to a private room.
Why was that?
Apparently, her roommates had complained to the hotel management about what the hotel's lawyer later called certain odd behavior.
Odd behavior, like what?
Well, there were reports she left notes for them, saying things like, go home or go away. And apparently she would lock the door to the shared room and demand a password to get in.
Okay, so that's definitely unusual.
Yeah, causing friction.
And it wasn't just with the roommates, right? There was another incident.
Yeah, just a few days before she vanished, she went to a live taping of the Conan O'Brien show in Burbank. But she ended up being escorted out, off the premises, reportedly for disruptive behavior there too.
So we're seeing this pattern, these unusual actions in the days leading up to January 31st, 2013. And crucially, that date, January 31st, that was the day she was supposed to check out, head to Santa Cruz.
Right. And up until that very day, she had been talking to her parents back in Canada. Daily contact.
Every single day.
Every day. And then January 31st, that contact stopped.
And that's what raised the alarm.
Exactly. That cessation was the trigger. When they didn't hear from her, they reported her missing. That was February 8th, though.
Took a few days.
It did. And they flew down to LA themselves to help with the search.
Wow. It's been awful for them.
Terrible.
So the initial search.
Yeah.
What did that involve? Hotel staff saw her on the 31st. but alone.
Yes, last seen alone by staff on that day. And interestingly, there's an account from Katie Orphan, the manager of the last bookstore nearby.
Oh, yeah.
She remembered seeing Elisa that same day. Said Elisa was buying gifts to take home, described her as outgoing, very lively, very friendly.
Huh. That sort of contrasts with the odd behavior reports, doesn't it?
It does. It paints a bit of a different picture for that specific interaction, at least.
But still, she vanished after that. The police searched the hotel.
They did. Searched her room, used trained dogs throughout the building, including the rooftop.
Okay, so they did check the roof early on.
They did check the roof area, yes. But Sergeant Rudy Lopez later explained, they couldn't just search every single guest room.
Right, you mean probable cause.
Exactly. So it wasn't until February 6th, over a week after she was last seen, that the LAPD went public. Distributed flyers with her photo, hoping someone had seen something.
And that leads us to, well, probably the most talked about, most unsettling piece of evidence in this whole thing.
The elevator video.
The elevator video. LAPD released it on February 13th, surveillance footage. Her last known moments, basically. January 31st, inside a hotel elevator.
And it is bizarre.
It really leaves you scratching your head.
Yeah.
More questions than answers.
Totally. It's, what, a little over 2.5 minutes long?
Something like that.
And it shows her doing these really peculiar things. She presses a whole bunch of elevator buttons.
Right, like nearly all of them.
Then she's peering out into the hallway repeatedly, like she's looking for someone or maybe hiding from someone.
Yeah, she steps in and out of the elevator too while the doors just stay open. Which is weird in itself.
Very weird. The doors don't close. And at one point, she's outside the elevator, kind of gesturing with her hands. Really strange shapes.
It looks like she's talking to someone, but there's no one there.
Exactly. And then eventually, she just walks away down the corridor. And only then did the elevator doors finally close.
That video just exploded online. Went completely viral.
Oh, instantly. Ignited this huge firestorm of speculation. So many theories.
People were analyzing every single frame, every gesture.
Mm-hmm.
Was she running from someone? Was she maybe, on drugs? That was a big early theory.
Right. Though the toxicology later ruled out illicit drugs.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But initially, that was a thought. And, of course, given her history.
Her bipolar disorder.
Right. The idea of a psychotic episode came up immediately.
Yeah.
As a possible explanation for that behavior.
And for listeners maybe not familiar, a psychotic episode, it can involve losing touch with reality. Hallucinations, delusions, very disorganized behavior.
Which, kind of fits what you see in the video.
It certainly aligns with how an episode can manifest that erratic behavior, yeah.
But then there were questions about the video itself, too, weren't there? People claiming it was tampered with.
There were, yeah. Some online communities definitely questioned its authenticity. Claims that the timestamp was obscured.
I remember that. Hard to read.
And allegations the footage might have been slowed down. Or that maybe bits were cut out.
Why would they do that?
Well, the speculation ranged from, protecting someone's privacy to, well, much more conspiratorial ideas. No confirmation either way, really.
It's just more mystery. So the video's out there, everyone's talking about it, but still no sign of Elisa.
No sign. Until nearly 3 weeks after she was last seen.
Then came the complaints from hotel guests.
Right. About the water. Low pressure first.
And then the color and taste.
Yeah. Discolored water. Reports of a foul taste, an odor. Just awful.
Okay.
So February 19th, a hotel maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, goes to check the water tanks on the roof.
And he finds her.
He finds her body inside one of the 4 huge 1,000-gallon water storage tanks up there.
Just horrifying. How did he describe it?
He reportedly saw her body floating face up in the water, looking through the tank's access hatch.
That hatch, though, it's small, right?
Very small. Too small to get her out easily. They had to drain the entire tank.
Oh, man.
And then, tragically, they actually had to cut an opening in the side of the tank to remove her body.
Just unbelievable. So then the autopsy, what did that find? Initially, it was inconclusive.
That's right. The first autopsy, February 21st, couldn't determine the cause of death right away. But later, the LA County Coroner's Office made the official ruling, accidental drowning. Accidental drowning. But they listed bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor.
Okay, so linking her mental health state to the accidental drowning.
Exactly. And then a more detailed report came out later, gave more, sometimes quite disturbing details.
Like what?
Well, the full report said her body was found unclothed.
Naked.
Naked. But clothing similar to what she wore in the elevator video that was found floating in the water nearby.
Okay.
And this clothing was described as having a sand-like particulate on it. Her watch and her room key were also in the tank.
Sand-like. What about the body itself? Decomposition.
Yes, moderate decomposition, bloating, greenish discoloration, skin separation, all consistent with being submerged for that length of time.
But no signs of a struggle. Or assault.
Crucially, no. The autopsy found no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of sexual assault, and no indications of suicide like pill residue or hesitation marks.
Okay. And the toxicology, did that clear things up?
It provided key info, but maybe raised more questions too.
How so?
It did show traces of her prescription meds, the Wellbutrin, lamotrigine, etc.,
Right.
and some over-the-counter stuff, Sudotab, ibuprofen, and a tiny amount of alcohol, negligible really.
But no illegal drugs.
No recreational or illicit drugs detected at all, which kind of countered those early theories.
Yeah.
But investigators noted something interesting. The levels of her prescription drugs were quite low,
Low, meaning what?
meaning it suggested she might have been under-medicating, or maybe she'd stopped taking them altogether recently.
Oh, and that could be critical.
Absolutely critical, because stopping or cutting back on bipolar meds suddenly, that can definitely increase the risk of a severe episode, like mania or psychosis.
Right, connecting back to her history in the video.
Precisely. It's a really important piece of the puzzle.
Were there other findings in the autopsy that caused discussion?
There were. The report mentioned subcutaneous pooling of blood in the anal area and a prolapsed rectum.
Okay, which sounds alarming.
It does sound alarming, and it prompted some speculation online about possible assault, despite the lack of other evidence. But it's important to understand decomposition. These kinds of changes can happen naturally after death, especially in water. Pathologists have pointed out that these specific things can occur post-mortem due to bloating and gas pressure, not necessarily trauma.
So it might look suspicious, but have a non-violent explanation?
Potentially, yes. Though some people did question the report's thoroughness, like whether a full rape kit analysis was done and detailed. There was some ambiguity felt there.
So, okay, official ruling, accidental drowning, linked to bipolar disorder, but huge questions remain.
Massive questions.
The biggest one, how did she even get onto the hotel roof?
Exactly. It was supposed to be locked.
Right. Reports said only staff had keys or passcodes for the doors, and there were alarms, supposedly.
Supposedly alarms that would trigger if forced. So how did she get past that?
The fire escape often comes up.
It does. That's suggested as a way she might have bypassed the locked doors.
Was there any evidence for that?
Well, it was reported that the police dogs, when they did the initial search, their scent trail for her was lost near a window that accessed the fire escape.
Okay, that's suggestive.
And then later, after her death, some video surfaced online, someone showing how you could seemingly get to the roof pretty easily using that fire escape.
Really?
Yeah, and the video even seemed to show some of the water tank lids just open, which contradicts some initial reports about them being heavy and closed.
Okay, so conflicting information there too.
Which makes it harder.
It definitely adds to the confusion.
And then, even if she got onto the roof, how did she get into the tank?
That's the other huge physical challenge.
These things are big, right? 4 feet across, 8 feet tall, on concrete blocks.
Yeah, cylindrical tanks. You wouldn't just climb in. Hotel staff apparently needed a ladder just to look inside to check water levels.
And no ladder was found nearby, right? No ladder found. And the lids, even if one was open, as the worker found it, they were supposedly heavy, hard to move. Could she have lifted it, gotten in? And could she have closed it from the inside if it was closed? Seems unlikely.
Very improbable for someone alone. And didn't the dogs not pick up her scent on the roof early on?
That's another point people raise, yeah. If she was up there right after disappearing, why didn't the dogs register her scent more strongly during that initial search? It adds another layer of just,
So many inconsistencies. So, okay, no illegal drugs found. But people still talk about drug influence.
Well, some speculate, could there be drugs that don't show up after decomposition? Or, some rare cocktail. It's mostly speculation without evidence.
Right.
The theory that seems to fit more of the known facts, even with the unanswered questions, is the potential psychotic episode.
Triggered by stopping or reducing her meds.
Exactly. If she was experiencing severe psychosis, hallucinations, paranoia, her perception of reality would be completely skewed.
Which could explain the elevator behavior. Feeling watched, hiding.
It could. Feeling pursued, maybe. And in that state, judgment is severely impaired. seeking refuge in a place that seems utterly bizarre and dangerous to us, like a water tank.
Might have seemed like a safe hiding place to her in that state.
It's a plausible, though tragic, possibility that fits her known condition and the toxicology showing low medication levels.
Okay. Now, after her death, her parents sued the hotel.
Right. They did. Filed a wrongful death lawsuit in September 2013.
What was their argument?
They alleged the Cecil Hotel failed in its duty, didn't maintain a reasonably safe environment for guests. Basically, they should have secured the rooftop and tanks better to prevent anyone getting up there.
Makes sense from their perspective. What did the hotel say?
The hotel countered that they couldn't have reasonably foreseen something like this happening, a guest getting into a water tank.
The foreseeability argument.
Exactly. They argued, since how she got up there and into the tank was still unknown, they couldn't be liable for failing to prevent what they called an unforeseeable event.
And what was the outcome?
The court sided with the hotel. The lawsuit was dismissed in 2015.
Wow. So no legal liability assigned to the hotel.
Correct.
It's really striking, though, how this case just permeated popular culture. It seemed to be everywhere for a while.
Oh, absolutely. It really captured the public imagination. The Wikipedia page lists tons of examples.
Like that horror movie, Dark Water.
Yeah.
The comparison came up early.
Yeah, the 2005 American remake, especially. Plot involves a body in a rooftop water tank, contaminated water. The parallels were uncanny and fueled a lot of online talk.
Very similar premise. And TV shows referenced it, too.
Seems like it inspired plot lines, yeah. Shows like Castle, How to Get Away with Murder apparently had episodes with deaths in hotel water tanks. And then there's American Horror Story, Hotel. Widely believed that the whole vibe, the unsettling atmosphere of the Cecil and the Elisa Lam mystery itself were big influences on that season.
You can definitely see the connection there. The creepy hotel setting.
And it wasn't just film and TV. Music, too.
What's
The band The Zolas, their music video for Ancient Mars was called a sort of romanticized take on her last day.
Okay.
And other bands like Hail the Sun, SKY&D, they wrote songs directly referencing her story, the details of her death.
It really resonated with artists.
It seemed to. There was also that super eerie coincidence, the Lam Elisa tuberculosis test.
Seriously.
Yeah, Lam Elisa, a test being studied nearby around that time. Just a bizarre, chilling name connection.
That is weirdly specific.
And of course, you can't talk about this case without mentioning the Cecil Hotel itself.
Its reputation definitely played a role.
Oh, yeah. It already had this dark, infamous history, connections to serial killers like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
He stayed there, right?
He did. And numerous suicides reported over the years. That history just amplified all the paranormal theories, the sinister speculation around Elisa's death.
Yeah, it provided this perfect, grim backdrop that made an already strange story feel even darker, I guess.
Exactly. Fertile ground for speculation.
So let's try and bring this all together then. The key facts.
Okay.
Elisa Lam vanishes from the Cecil Hotel.
Check.
Last known footage. That deeply unsettling elevator video showing very unusual behavior. Weeks later, her body is found, inexplicably inside a locked rooftop water tank.
Tragic discovery, yeah.
The official cause of death, ruled accidental drowning.
With her diagnosed bipolar disorder listed as a significant contributing factor.
Right. But despite all that, these fundamental questions, they just hang there.
They absolutely do. Especially how? How did she access that supposedly secure roof?
And how did she get into that massive tank? Alone,
And
unassisted.
it still eludes explanation, concrete explanation anyway.
It's that mix, isn't it? The tragic circumstances, the mental health aspect, which is so important.
The human element.
And then these truly baffling physical details. The roof, the tank, the video, all combines to make it so resonant, so disturbing. It stays with you.
It really does. It's a case that defies easy answers.
So thinking about everything we've gone over, all these facets, what part of this case do you, listening now, find the most compelling? Or maybe the most unsettling?
Yeah, what sticks with you? And why do you think this story, specifically, this blend of, personal struggle, the environment of that hotel, these lingering questions, why has it captured our collective imagination so strongly? Why all the pop culture references?
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About vulnerability, about place, and maybe about our human need to understand things that seem, well, inexplicable, something to mull over.